Some kind of fight. Harros looked down at the long list of conjunctions that his team had been able to identify. Hours of painstaking work, compiling and cross-referencing scouting reports from across the Empire, all of which had to be expensively checked against the Sentinel Gate using Detect Magic. Sometimes he wondered if there'd be a better way to do this. He stared at the list. 2 conjunctions at the same time. Of course, the largest conjunctions often split that way, but it was rare for smaller ones to do so. It hadn't happened in years. Although, according to the records, there'd been over a dozen in the year leading up to Britta's death. That was undoubtedly a coincidence. Probably. "Check this again," he said to Myrnos, pointing at the 2 link conjunctions. "If there's any possibility that we can access both those conjunctions, any possibility at all, then we need to make sure that we don't miss it." Myrnos looked up at his mentor. "We've already checked them both," he said. "Twice. I know it's unusual, but we confirmed it. They're definitely linked." "Leave it a week, then check again." Even as he said it, he knew he was wasting his time. It was unusual for conjunctions to move in time and space, but not that rare. But deep down, he knew this pair were never going to split apart. Someone was going to have to choose. Overview. At the winter equinox, the Imperial Senate instructed the magistrates to leave no stone unturned in their pursuit of the Yornagra cultists that have plagued the Empire. The pursuit is not without price. Production at manor sites all over the Empire have been disrupted by the activities of the militia and the magistrates, disruption that's due to continue for another season to come. It has been effective, however. Dozens of low-level initiates have been caught by the militia and dealt with by the magistrates. Crucially, the constant pursuit is preventing Yornagra from being able to re-establish a presence anywhere, making it harder for them to cause further problems. To settle the matter, though, the Empire needs to find the leaders of the cults and deal with them. Thus far, there have been a few good leads, but the magistrates are certain that they will have tracked the key individuals down once the investigation is complete. In the meantime, a large force of Navarre have volunteered to go to Leathavan to see if there's any truth to the theory that the heirs of Taruniel are based there. Fortunately, it seems that all this shaking the tree has caused at least one apple to fall. Admittedly, it hasn't fallen into the Empire's lap, but at least one agent of Yornagra is now out in the open. Back to the source. The Navarre have sent nearly 30 military units to Leathavan to track the cultists back to their lair. The scouts have a short report of whatever they've managed to discover this season. Their report will include details of an opportunity to use military force to attack the heirs of Taruniel. All the information the Silent Bell were able to procure pointed towards the stronghold of the heirs of Taruniel being somewhere in Leathavan. Many of the heirs fled are known to have travelled there at one time or another, often when fleeing encounters from Imperial forces. As far as the Silent Bell have been able to determine, all their leads point back to the unconquered Valorn Heart near the centre of this ancient forest. In an attempt to discover more about their enemy, the Navarre have sent a small army of scouts into the territory, accompanied by one sympathetic marcher. There's a spy network in the territory that remains concealed and viable to the best of the Empire's knowledge, and it's an ideal location to scout from. The Empire still maintains a toehold in the territory, but only just, with barely a handful of Navarre steadings left in the territory. There are known enemies here as well, with the Yotun in control of the northern regions of the territory and a significant Fenni presence somewhere in the forest. Much of the political and military situation in the territory is already well known, but the returning scouts will have the latest, most up-to-date knowledge on what's happening there. They may also, finally, have some clues as to the identity of the leader of the heirs of Taruniel. The Navarre are also hoping to use the intelligence recovered as the basis for a military attack on the heirs, but the value of such information usually decays quickly. To ensure that the effort isn't wasted, Rian Swiftlark, one of the Imperial prognosticators, took a group of fellow Navarre volunteers and travelled with the scouts. Her plan was to try and coordinate the information as it arrived at the spy network, rather than wait for it to get back somewhere safe. The goal was for her small team of prognosticators to be able to conduct a rigorous analysis of the reports while it was still in the field. And if the plan had been successful, and there was no reason to think it wouldn't be, then the leaders of the returning scouts will each have one copy of the information that they've collectively recovered, along with Rienne's analysis of what opportunities are available. She's a skilled prognosticator who has a lot of experience with the Valorn, so the civil service are confident that she'll have been able to provide the returning scouts with a definitive description of what could be achieved and how much military force it'd take to accomplish it. But until the start of the summit, the only people who have those details are the leaders of the scouting units assigned to the Liathavan spy network. Empire has a complete list of everyone who travelled to Liathavan, so now it's just a matter of waiting for those people to reach Anvil with their report. Twin gates. An important twin conjunction has arisen. The Empire could go to Homewood, or they could travel to Vales Fast, but not both. If the Empire choose Homewood, they can ensure the inhabitants of the area are able to escape a Valorn attack safely. But if the Empire chooses Vales Fast, they have a chance to attack one of the leaders of the cult of Yornagra who's driving Valorn spawn into Cassinea. The civil service suggests that the general of the Tower Jacks might take responsibility for the conjunction. While the Empire are searching for them in Liathavan, it appears that the allies of the heirs of Taruniel, the Cabals of Yornagra, are not content to sit and wait for the Empire to travel them down. 2 weeks before the spring equinox, the Navarre Thorns patrolling the borders of Bracaliand report that a host of Valorn spawn have shambled out of Vale's Lament and crossed the border into Merholm, Cassinea. It comes as an immediate relief to many that this advance is not one of the rare occurrences of the Valorn's miasma extending outward over new lands. Instead, it appears to be a singular and contained movement of spawn into Merholm. The horde is composed primarily of infested corpses and the occasional Valorn Briar, an enemy encountered and defeated many times by the Navarre and the heroes of the Empire. It's large, but not massive. Perhaps several hundred shambling creatures at most. Navarre Thorns are quick to track the enemy and report the wave of spawn is being directed by an elusive cultist of Yornagra, who's only been glimpsed a few times at the rear of the mass. Dubbed the Shadow Spore, it's unclear who the cultist actually is. Maybe a fallen Navari, perhaps one of the surviving members of the Green Fountain or the Cabal of the Green Mother. A number of Holberg Free companies attached to the Tower Jacks, currently resupplying in the region, have already begun moving to stand against the Valorn, with combat expected in the days immediately after the equinox. The hardened soldiers, steeled in battle against the Druge on the besieged walls of their fine city, are expected to make short work of the spawn, even though they lack much in the way of mages capable of casting venomous spells, or in the use of blade venoms typically employed by the Navarre Valorn hunters. However, despite the support of the League army, the shambling corpses still present a very ready threat to the populace of Merholm. The farming settlement in Homewood is currently surrounded by the creatures, and the guiding hand of Shadowspore has ensured that the citizens there have effectively been corralled, preventing their escape. Unusually, the prognosticators have detected 2 large conjunctions related to this opportunity, but it appears only a single chance to use the Sentinel Gate exists. This situation has been likened to the major conjunctions that allow the combined might of the Imperial nations to bring battle to the foes of the Empire, albeit on a much smaller scale. There's no possibility of travel on both conjunctions, leaving the Empire with a difficult choice. Someone will need to make a decision on which conjunction the Empire will pursue. The civil service suggests that the general of the Tower Jacks might take responsibility for this, or the designated appointee, since they are the general of the military forces already in the area. Whoever's taking charge of the situation should inform the War Scout at the Sentinel Gate which opportunity they wish to travel on well in advance of the conjunction's start time. The miasma, commonly encountered close to powerful areas of Valorn, is not yet present at either Homewood or Vales Fast. Homewood. The first conjunction leads to the outskirts of Homewood, close to the surrounded villagers who've taken sanctuary in the farm buildings and a chapel. Using this conjunction would allow the Empire to engage the majority of the spawn in combat, breaking their strength and ensuring that the trapped citizens could be led to safety by the forward elements of the Tower Jacks. Success or failure. If the Empire are able to engage the main body of the Valorn spawn and destroy them, then they'll ensure that the Tower Jacks are able to save the villagers who've taken refuge in the chapel and the farm buildings at Homewood. The army will be able to evacuate everyone who's trapped and ensure that no lives are lost. Homewood will likely be badly damaged in the resulting fighting, but once the spawn are destroyed, then the people will be able to return to their lives. However, if the Empire chooses this option, Shadowspore will escape. Vale's Fast. A second conjunction leads to Vale's Fast, close to the rear of the Valoran-spawn horde and near the last sighting of Shadowspore. Using this opportunity, the Empire can make a strike against the cult leader, potentially slaying them and leaving the spawn without direction and the Tower Jacks with a simple operation to just mop up the remaining monsters. This is the best chance available to take out Yhornegra's agent and prevent them from further rousing the Valoran in the future. However, the villagers of Homewood would be left exposed and at the mercy of the spawn before the Tower Jacks can reach them. Success or failure? Destroying the Valoran spawn is ultimately fruitless. The Empire might temporarily rob the Valoran of vitality in an area, but it always recovers quickly. But if the heroes can locate and destroy Shadowspore, then they'll be able to rob Yhornegra of a powerful agent inside the Empire, one the Eternal can't easily replace. Whoever or whatever Shadowspore is, they're likely to be well protected by the infested corpses. However, if the Empire chooses this option, then the villagers of Homewood will be slaughtered by the Valoran before the Tower Jacks can reach them. Simple strikes. In addition to the mysterious attack by Shadowspore, the Empire has identified 2 other conjunctions that are likely linked to the forces of Yhornegra. Fortunately, these gates are not conjoined, so there's no need to pick between one or the other. However, the scouts warn that both of these conjunctions lead to areas that are steeped in Valoran miasma. Imperial heroes contemplating risking their lives through either gate should take appropriate precautions. A note on Valoran miasma. All characters on a skirmish in Broceliande are under a permanent venom effect while in a Valoran miasma, and will eventually experience symptoms of nausea or mild feverishness unless they can do one of the following things. If they're the target of the Vitality of Rushing Water ritual, or if they're bonded to an Abraxas stone. Brock's approach. The civil service suggests that the advisor on the Valoran might take responsibility for the conjunction. The Empire has a chance to deny the forces of Yhornegra to use a small but important Spring Regio. A sizable force of Valoran are blocking an important route through Brock's approach, seemingly drawn to a minor Spring Regio there. A conjunction has been identified to the location where Imperial forces may be able to disperse the Valoran spawn and then hold the area, cutting down any further forces that approach. Navarre Rangers understand that the conjunction will open very close to the Regio, so going through, one should be prepared for an immediate enemy presence. Success or failure? The Empire will need to seize control of the nearby Regio and hold it. The scouts anticipate that the spawn will attack in waves as reinforcements flood the area once the Empire emerge. The heroes will need to hold the Regio itself until the waves break to ensure that whoever's directing the spawn is not able to access the Regio to make use of it. Given the presence of the Regio and the way that the Valoran are being drawn to it, the scouts anticipate that failure will mean that Yhornegra is able to use the Regio to unleash a curse of some kind over the area. But it's impossible to know what in advance. Black Hearth Steading. The civil service suggests that the advisor on the Valoran might take responsibility for this conjunction also. If successful, the Empire would gain an opportunity to re-establish a strategically important steading at the autumn equinox. Black Hearth Steading is the site of a former steading in a strategically important location that had to be abandoned and has since fallen into ruin. Former inhabitants of Black Hearth are keen to re-establish their steading and have been working towards that goal, despite the danger, but it seems the forces of Yhornegra may soon make that impossible without intervention from Anvil. A group of heralds of Yhornegra have been using spring magic to tear down any signs of civilization in Black Boughs to return it to the forest. Now they're drawing near to Black Hearth, accompanied by a sizable force of infested spawn. The scouts have identified 3 heralds in the area. If they can be prevented from reaching the palisade walls of the steading, then they'll save the steading from destruction. The heralds only need to touch the walls, so holding up and defending from the inside probably won't work. Ideally, it'd be better to slay the heralds, but a strategy to aggressively hunt them down is riskier. Success or failure? Merely killing Valoran spawn will not achieve much. Whatever force animates the Valoran can quickly create new shambling plant-infested horrors. To succeed, the Empire will need to ensure that none of the heralds of Yhornegra are able to get close enough to touch the palisade walls of the steading to allow them to unleash their magic on it. The heroes could kill the heralds, but to succeed they just need to keep them away from the walls for at least 10 minutes, as the creatures will need to unleash the spring rituals they've prepared in that time, else they fail. Doing so will ensure Black Hearth steading is saved, and create an opportunity to reoccupy and rebuild this strategically important steading by the time of the autumn equinox. If they fail, then the heralds will unleash their magic, and the last remnants of the abandoned steading will be destroyed. Further reading. Faded from Winter, which is a Winter 383 Wind of Fortune. The Rise of Turuniel, which is an Autumn 383 Wind of Fortune. Fire and Hemlock. Briar Prejudice and Briar Flowers. The Vate Shelter. And for even more information, go and check out the wiki posting on the eternal Yorna Gra.